ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪੁ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪੁ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪੁ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪੁ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਇਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਕਰਤਾ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਨਿਰਵੈਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦਿ ਜਪੁ ਆਦਿ ਸਚ ਜੁਗਾਦਿ ਸਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸਚ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਕਰਮ ਨ ਜਾਨਾ ਨਾਹਿਨ ਨਿਰਮਲ ਕਰਨੀ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਕੈ ਅੰਚਲ ਲਾਵਹੁ ਵਿਖਮ ਨਦੀ ਜਾਇ ਤਰਣੀ ਗਿਆਨ ਧਿਆਨ ਕਿਛ ਕਰਮ ਨ ਜਾਣਾ ਸਾਰ ਨ ਜਾਣਾ ਤੇਰੀ ਸਭ ਤੇ ਵੱਡਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਨਾਨਕ ਜਿਨ ਕਲ ਰਾਖੀ ਮੇਰੀ ਤੇਰੇ ਜੋਰ ਮੈਂ ਗੂੰਗਾ ਕਹਤਾ ਹੂੰ ਤੇਰਾ ਸਦਕਾ ਤੇਰੀ ਸਰਣ
ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਧਰਮ ਖੰਡ ਕਾ ਇਹੋ ਧਰਮ ਗਿਆਨ ਖੰਡ ਕਾ ਆਖੋ ਕਰਮ ਕੀਤੇ ਪਵਨ ਪਾਣੀ ਵੈ ਸੰਤਰ ਕੀਤੇ ਕਾਣ ਮਹੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤੇ ਬਰਮੇ ਕਾੜਤ ਘੜੀਐ ਰੂਪ ਰੰਗ ਕੇ ਵੇਸ ਕੀਤਿਆ ਕਰਮ ਭੂਮੀ ਮੇਰ ਕੀਤੇ ਧੂ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤੇ ਇੰਦ ਚੰਦ ਸੂਰ ਕੀਤੇ ਮੰਡਲ ਦੇਸ ਕੀਤੇ ਸਿੱਧ ਬੁੱਧ ਨਾਥ ਕੀਤੇ ਦੇਵੀ ਵੇਸ ਕੀਤੇ ਦੇਵ ਦਾਨਵ ਮੁਨ ਕੀਤੇ ਰਤਨ ਸਮੁੰਦ ਕੀਤਿਆ ਖਾਣੀ ਕੀਤਿਆ ਬਾਣੀ ਕੀਤੇ ਪਾਤ ਨਿਰਿੰਦ ਕੀਤਿਆ ਸੁਰਤੀ ਸੇਵਕ ਕੀਤੇ ਨਾਨਕ ਅੰਤ ਨਾ ਅੰਤ ਧਰਮ ਖੰਡ ਕਾ ਇਹੋ ਧਰਮ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਪਤਿਤ ਪਾਵਨ ਭਗਤ ਵਛਲ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਦੇ ਖਜ਼ਾਨੇ ਜੋਤ ਰੂਪ ਧੰਨ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ। We're blessed again to be gathered here to continue learning the teachings from Sri Japji Sahib. Japji Sahib the first Bani in Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the form of Akal Purkh Vaheguru on this earth, the first Bani of the Gursikh's Nitnem, the first Bani read in the Amrit Sanchar, the Bani that will give us Brahma Gyan, the true knowledge of Vaheguru, the knowledge of the Lord God, who is the giver, organizer, and the deliverer of us back into themselves. The Bani that will break us free from the cycle of births and deaths, taking us out of the 8.4 million lives and joining us with Akal, the timeless Lord, where we have originated from, so we can experience that bliss, that anand, by being one with Vaheguru while we are living. Only by the repetition of this Bani can we achieve that. This Bani is a form of Naam, a form of the name of the Lord. Just by repeating the name of the Lord, by repeating Naam, we can achieve that oneness, and this form of Naam, Sri Japji Sahib, will do that for us. Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji travels all over the world, spreading the message of Gursikhi, spreading the message of Vaheguru, so that that message can save all of his creation. Some are blessed, they take the teachings and implement them into their lives, and some are not blessed. They are blessed to the fact of hearing those teachings, of contemplating on those teachings, but they are not blessed because they cannot implement them into their lives. For some reason, they are like in the middle of a herd of sheep. They don't know where they are being led, or they don't know where they're being pushed to. They are followers of society which is ruled by the Panch Chor, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar. They are not the leaders leading the way to break free from these Panch Chor and to join with the timeless Lord Vaheguru. Are we those who will be blessed, who are blessed, or are we those who have not been blessed? We have learned through the teachings of Sri Japji Sahib that although everything is in the command, in the order of Vaheguru, in his hukam, we have the opportunity through our actions to do nishkam karam, actions which are not for asking for any materialistic or worldly thing, actions which are just for the khushiyan from Vaheguru. If we complete those actions by putting in some effort, then we have that opportunity to be blessed and break free from the cycle of births and deaths. Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji travels the world, blessing many, many souls. Through their discussions with the Siddhs, the Gurbani of Sri Japji Sahib is recited. The second king, the second form, the second coming of Akal Purkh Vaheguru, Tan Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji, the limbs of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji, the angs of Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji. Tan Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji orders Sri Japji Sahib in this way, in these pauriyan, starting with the Mool Mantra that we have just recited, finishing with Salok Pavan Guru Pani Pita, and thus becomes the Mala Mantra of the Sikhs, Sri Japji Sahib. We have reached a point towards the end of Sri Japji Sahib where the Siddhs in this collection of pauriyan are asking about the paths, the steps of spirituality, the paths, the steps to reach oneness, to go to that place which is described as Sachkhand, which is not a heaven, but which is an experience, is an avastha, is the oneness itself with the Vaheguru. We have learned there are 7 steps, Sat Bhumaka, and each of those describes a different phase, a different stage, a different avastha. We have heard about the first 3. We have heard about the first one, Shubh Ichha. The second one, Shubh Vicharna. The third one, Tanu Mansa. And now we reach the 4th stage, the 4th avastha, Sattvapata. In the previous stage, it was described as the avastha of a satsangi, of somebody who partakes in the Saad sangat. Their avastha of understanding their karam and doing actions without asking for anything materialistically, nishkama karam. And through that development, they reach this stage. In the last stage, through those efforts of nishkama karam, their kam, krodh, lobh have started to decrease. The lust, anger and greed have started to decrease. Their spirituality has developed, so they get knowledge. They gain knowledge and the understanding of Vaheguru, the understanding of the truth. The Siddhs continue to ask Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji about this 4th stage to reach oneness.
ਸਤਿਨਾਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਧਰਮ ਖੰਡ ਕਾ ਇਹੋ ਧਰਮ
Dhan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji explains Dharam Khand ka eho dharam. The previous body has just described that phase which we called Dharam Khand. And Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji has just explained that we've just heard the teachings of Dharam Khand, the realm or the part of Dharam, of faith, of righteousness, which we've just described as being about Nishkam Karam, actions without asking for anything materialistically or worldly, without asking for anything, just doing it out of the love and the devotion of Vaheguru.
ਗਿਆਨ ਖੰਡ ਕਾ ਆਖੋ ਕਰਮ
The Siddhs then asked, tell us about the next phase, the next khand, the next realm, the next spiritual stage, the next step, the 4th Bhumika. Gyan khand ka akho karam. Tell us about the actions or describe the doings of Gyan khand. And as I was saying, this 4th stage of spirituality is called Sattvapata. Sat meaning truth, apat meaning gaining that knowledge of the truth, understanding the truth, reaching a level where you understand the meaning of life, gaining that knowledge of Vaheguru. By gaining that knowledge, you have started to experience Akal Purkh Vaheguru. You have started to become close and experience being one with the Lord. Maybe not 24/7, but you have started to become and feel that experience of being one with the Lord. You have gained that knowledge, or you've started to gain that knowledge of the Lord. And that's why we call it Gyan Khanda, Gyan knowledge. In the same way as this stage is called Sattvapata. It is a spiritual stage of a sevak, or of a sevadar, a selfless servant. That is the spiritual level. Baba Buddha Sahib Ji was the Gursikh who had the seva of passing on the Gurgaddi. When Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji left this world and passed on the Gurgaddi, the Guruship, and passed that on to Sri Guru Angad Dev Sahib Ji, it was Baba Buddha Sahib Ji who completed that ceremony. And they stayed all the way to the times of Tan Sri Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji. Baba Buddha Sahib Ji was also the first Granthi of Sri Harmandir Sahib in Amritsar, the first Granthi of the everlasting Guru, the form of Akal Purkh Vaheguru as we know it, Tan Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Their great grandson was known as Baba Gurbaksh Singh, but in history their name before they took Khande di Pahal, they were known as Bhai Ram Koir. And in history we are told that Baba Gurbaksh Singh had reached such a spiritual stage that their mind, although they'd completed actions in this world, they were not attached to those actions. What do I mean by that? In this world, we need to eat to live. And sometimes we get attached to that food and we decide that we want to eat more if we like it, showing a little bit of greed. And sometimes we eat less if we don't like it. So we are attached to what we do. Our Panchjor are linked to what we do. But Baba Gurbaksh Singh had reached such a spiritual stage that they would complete actions, but they would not be attached to those actions. When they used to eat, a sevadar used to tie a parna, so like one of these hajuriye, around their waist, because they were not attached to the food, they were attached to the Lord. And when the langar was given to them, they would start eating, and they would continue eating, because while they were eating, they would repeat the name of the Lord. They would be attached to the name of the Lord, and so they would lose their thought from the process of eating, because they were attached and they were one with Vaheguru. So they could continue eating for many minutes, many hours. So what the sevadars used to do was, like I just said, tie one of these hajuriye loosely around their waist. And as they would eat, their stomach would slowly come out, and the hajuriya would tighten. And so the sevadar would notice that they've eaten enough, and they would say, Babaji, you have completed your prashadda. And then Baba Gurbaksh Singh would stop, and then they would realize they would move on. That was like a ishara for them to stop and continue with their daily duties. So that Sakhi is written in history. That's what used to happen for Baba Gurbaksh Singh, because their spiritual state had reached such a phase where whatever action they would do, they would not be attached to that action. They would just do it as being involved in the world, because actually their thought process, their mind, their buddhi, their thoughts, everything was attached to the charan of Akal Purkh Vaheguru. That is describes this spiritual stage of Gyan Khand. Losing that attachment of the world, having that knowledge of the truth, and being joined to the truth. So even though this is only the 4th stage out of 7, spiritually this is a very, very developed stage. And I explained in the previous Paudiya that even getting onto the first step is a very, very developed spiritual stage. And it's easy, when I said last week that last time, Dharamkhand describes the avastha, the spiritual stage of a satsangi, somebody who comes to the Saad sangat. Now in some ways, we're all blessed to be in the Saad sangat, but it doesn't mean that all of us are at Dharamkhand. It means those who complete all actions without asking for anything. And as this spiritual phase continues to this Khand, Gyan Khand is described as the stage of a sevak. Now again, there'll be many people in the Guru Ghar that do a lot of seva. But that does not mean they have reached the spiritual stage of Gyan Khand. A true sevak is one who has sacrificed everything. Tan, their body, man, their mind, and tan, their wealth. Just like Baba Gurbakh Singh has. Because a true sevak has given everything. They are completely selfless. That's why we describe seva as selfless service. Selfless means completely free of any ego, any attachment, any of the Vishavikar, any of the Panch Jor. That is this spiritual stage. And the Siddhs continue to ask, Gyan Khand ka akho karam. Please explain the karam, the actions of Gyan Khand.
Kete pavan pani vai santar, kete khan mahes.
Kete means many, innumerous. The avastha, the spiritual mindset of a Gursikh who reaches this stage of spirituality, they begin to realize, they gain knowledge of all of creation. They gain knowledge of pavan, air, many types of air that the Lord has created. Air such as gases, elements in the form of gas, not just in this world, but in all of creation, in many worlds. They gain the knowledge of pani, water. Not just the water we see in a tap, but the waters in the oceans. Waters which are sweet, because some water is sweet, some water is salty. Some water is gora, some water is dark, some water is light. Some water is in our bodies, but water is out in the world. Water is the form of sweat. So they gain that knowledge of all the different type of water, and aver santar meaning fire. They gain that knowledge of the creation of fire. Now why does Vaheguru, why does Stan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji explain this to the Siddhs? The knowledge of water, air and fire. Because these are three of the basic 5 elements which make up creation. The 5 elements of air, water, fire, earth, and what they call ether, which is space, nothingness, no element. These are 3 of those 5, those panchatattva that make up all of creation. So in some ways, a Sikh who is at Gyan Khand, who has this spiritual level, they gain the knowledge of all of creation. They gain the knowledge of the fire which is in our stomach, in a mother's womb, different types of fires, different types of waters, airs. They gain that knowledge of creation. How do they gain that knowledge? Because instead of how we see with our physical eyes, that we look at people, their eyesight, if you will, in a way of describing it, they see with their inner eyes. They get to see everything, all of creation. We can also describe this in the sense that those who are at Gyan Khand have the qualities of these 3 elements. What qualities are they? Pavan, air. Now the air remains detached from everything. The air remains detached from the earth. So a Gursikh has that quality of detachment. They stay detached from society. They're within society, but they remain detached from society. Just like the air is in the atmosphere, but it remains detached from everything. Water, when it is calm, is very peaceful and thanda. So a Gursikh who reaches the spiritual stage becomes very peaceful and calm. And fire is very bright. And so a Gursikh becomes very, very bright. They glow, their aura glows. So also in these panktiyan, we can describe the avastha, the stages of a Gursikh, but we also are learning what being at this spiritual stage, what they see. What else do they say? Kete kan mahes. They realize that God, Vaheguru, has created innumerable Krishnas. So Kan stands for Krishan and Mahe stands for Shivji. Now, the Hindu faith believe in these demigods. They believe in Shivji. They worship Shivji. They worship Krishna. But Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib is explaining to the Siddhs, because in this discussion with the Siddhs are forever questioning the power, questioning the oneness, questioning the authority of the Lord Vaheguru. And Guru Sahib Ji is continually explaining in many paudiyaan that Vaheguru is one, the beginning of Japji Sahib, Ik Oankar, and that Vaheguru is almighty, all powerful, and everything and everything else is under Vaheguru, under the Lord. And so Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is explaining to the Siddhs that God has created many Krishnas. Krishna was a demigod, and Shivji is one of the 3 gods that the Hindu faith believe in. Brahma they believe in as the form of God giving birth, Vishnu who looks after, and Shivji who destroys. So Kete Kan Mahesh, God has created many of these forms, many forms of Shivji, many forms of Krishna over and over again. And the teaching to us is, from this, is that Vaheguru is all powerful, because even the greatest demigods, as they are being described as by other faiths, even they are not one, they are many of those, and they have been created by the Almighty Vaheguru.
Kete barme kadat kadiyahe roop rang ke ves.
Kete, there are many. They realize, those Gursikhs at Gyan Khand realize that there are many Brahme. They've already reached the stage above these demigods. Because if they get to see many forms of these, they obviously have, these Gursikhs who have reached this stage have already reached above these demigods that some others believe to be God. Kete barme Brahma kart kadiye. Kart kadiye means to form, fashion. Just like we make something out of clay, we form that clay pot or that shape, whatever we do. That's what kart kadiye means. There are many forms of Brahma. There's a tale of Brahma's Hankar. Now Brahma is known to have 4 heads, 4 faces. And when Brahma visited an elderly sage, the elderly sage didn't stand up because he was elderly. And Brahma thought himself as God, and he expected this elderly sage to stand up and respect him. The elderly sage thought that because he's elderly, Brahma should respect him. And both of them didn't respect each other, but within themselves they had that hankar of, I am bigger than the other. What happened? Vaheguru, the Lord, gave them a teaching. And we're going to take this tale and take a teaching from this. And what happened? A whirlwind came and took this Brahma of 4 heads and this sage and took them to another realm. And at that realm, they saw another Brahma, one with 8 heads. And they both looked in amazement. And the Brahma with 8 heads said, you are Brahma with 4, I am even more powerful than you. I have been given that duty of creating. I am Brahma. And at that point, when he showed his ego, then another whirlwind came and took them to another realm. And the sage, the Brahma with 4 heads, the Brahma with 8 heads were taken, and they saw Brahma with 16 heads, who then showed his ego, that he is the greatest Brahma. And then when that ego was shown, all them then again by a whirlwind taken to another stage, and they saw a stage with a Brahma with 32 heads, and then ego was shown again by that Brahma. And a whirlwind took them, and it continued going until they found a Brahma with hundreds and thousands of heads. Now again, I'm saying this is a tale, but we're taking a teaching from this. Because in your mind you might be thinking, well, how can we have 4 heads? How can we have 8 heads? How can we have 100,000 of heads? But some of these panktiyan that we read in Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, they are linked. Well, all of these are linked. Some are linked to Sakhiyan, some are linked to situations with these Devi Devte from previous ages. And so we take those teachings from their scripts, their scriptures, and we take the morals behind those and implement them into our lives, because Guru Sahib Ji wouldn't have put those panktiyan mentioning them if we were not meant to look at their texts, to take those teachings from their stories. But the Brahma with the 100,000 of heads, he didn't show any ego. He respected all these other Brahmi that had turned up and this sage. And they looked in amazement. He bowed down, he said, I am blessed by all you Brahmi coming to this phase, this realm, and this great sage. And they realized that they were showing ego at each stage because of who they were or what they thought they were. And the original Brahma with the 4 heads, he understood that Vaheguru is all powerful, because this Brahma of hundreds of thousands of heads even explained that even there are realms with Brahmin with more heads than me, with more power. So if we take that to be power, the more the heads, the more the power, the more Shaktiyan. So Vaheguru is all powerful. Brahma, Shivji, Vishnu and all the demigods are part of the creation just like us. They have been given a duty. Other demigods are given a duty by Vaheguru, but they are stuck in that duty. Sur Narman Jan Amrit Lochde, so Amrit Gurte Paya. We read in Anand Sahib. These Devi Devte, these Dants, the demons, they're all, everybody is searching for this Amrit, the Khandedi Pahul, because that is the only way you break free from the cycle of births and deaths, come out of the 8.4 million lives and become one with Vaheguru. But we, the human form, have been blessed with this opportunity to break free, and within the human form, we as the sangat of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, we have been blessed even further, because we are allowed to come into his sanctuary, to take the teachings, to implement those, and so we have a fast track to break free. So the Gursikh who has reached this stage realizes that there are many Brahmi. Brahma was or is described as the number 1 in the Hindu faith, the Almighty. But this Pankti, Tan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is teaching us that there are many forms of Brahmi that have been created. So Vaheguru is even more powerful. Roop Rang Ke Ves, many roop, many forms, many colors, Rang Ke Ves, many forms of these Brahmi have been created, and the Gursikh realizes this, because their eyes are now not those physical eyes that we look outside with, they are those spiritual eyes, and they get to see all forms of creation. Starting with the first Pankti, they realize all the tats, those 5 basic elements, and from there they get to see all of creation.
Ketiya karma bhumi mer kete kete tu upades.
Ketiya karma bhumi mer kete. So Ketiya, again, there are numerous karma bhumi. Karma bhumi means this earth where we are allowed to commit actions, where we do karma bhumi. There are many of these earths, many places. They realize all the places in the creation, not just this world, but everywhere where actions take place. They realize those, their avastha, their spiritual stage lets them see all of that. Mer kete, Mer is described as Sumer Parvat, is a mountain called Sumer. And that's where Dan Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji used to meet these Siddhs. And the Siddhs would think that as the highest place on the earth. And that's where Gorakhnath did his bhakti, the guru of these Siddhs. And Guru Sahib Ji, Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is saying, Mer Kete, you think this Sumer Parvat, this mountain, is the greatest? There are many mountains like this. And then again, like I said in the earlier Pankti, if we want to take a description of the avastha, of what does that mean in the Gursikh's life who has reached this stage, Ketia Karam Bhumi. The Gursikh who has reached this spiritual stage, their Karam in this Karam Bhumi is of Nishkam. We've learnt that from the previous body. They complete Nishkam Karam. Their Karam, their actions are all towards the love of Vaheguru. Mere, they are like a mountain that cannot be moved. They are immovable because they are not wavered by society. They are not wavered by the Panchjor. They have only one thought in their thought process, being one with the Lord. Kete tu upadesh. Tu is translated to through Bhagat. A Bhagat, a spiritual person called through. And there's a Pankti in Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Ram japo ji aise aise, through Prahalad japyo har jaise. Through Bhagat was a child. We've heard the Sakhi before. Ram japo hoji aise aise, through Prahalad japo hoji jaise. Japyo har jaise. Vaheguru, forgive me for my mistake. So we are supposed to recite the name just like Thru Bhagat did. Thru Bhagat was the son of a king. He left his kingdom and he sat and he repeated the name of the Lord constantly until he was one with the Lord. But there are many Thru Bhagats, there are many Bhagats, spiritual beings who detach themselves from society and repeat the name of the Lord. Tu Upadesh. There are many of the gurus of Thru Bhagat. So Thru Bhagat would have, when he was going, he saw a spiritual person who said, who gave him the name of the Lord of that time for him to repeat. So many of those types of spiritual people who have given the name of the Lord in previous ages, but in this age of Kaljug, there's only one Guru, the true Guru, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, in the form of the Panch Pyare, who gave the name of the Lord, Vaheguru Mantra.
Kete Ind Chand Sur Kete.
Kete Ind, Indra Devata was the king of these demigods. There are many Indras. Chand Sur Kete. Sur means Suraj, the sun. Chand means obviously the moon. There are many moons that are being created, not just the moon we see that goes around the earth, not just the sun, which the earth goes around. There are many moons and there are many suns that have been created.
Kete Mandal Des.
Kete Mandal Des, Mandal meaning worlds. There are many worlds that have been created. And this Gursikh, who has reached this avastha, who has reached this spiritual stage of Gyan Khand, they experience, they can see all of this, not with their physical eyes, but with their spiritual eyes. Kete Mandal Des, many worlds with different countries, different sections, different deshes within them.
Kete Siddh Buddh Nath Kete.
Kete Siddh, you Siddhs, there are many Siddhs like yourself, but Siddh can be translated to those who have Siddh, who have done Siddh, who have reached spiritual stages, proficiencies, and they have got the Siddhiyan, Athara Siddhiyan, those Riddhiya Siddhiyan, those occult powers. There are many of those who have reached that spiritual stage, and the Gursikh who reaches Gyan Khand has obviously surpassed that stage, and those occult powers are the Gursikhs Dasi, they are the servants of the Gursikhs, but also they get to see all of these Siddhs. They have seen them with their inner eyes. Buddha, like Mahatma Buddha as he is known. There are many forms of Buddha that has been created who have reached a knowledgeable stage, and Nath, Gorakhnath is the Guru of the Siddhs. There are many Gorakhnaths, Naths, but also the avastha of a Gursikh in Gyan Khand, Siddh, somebody who's Siddh Karna, to reach a complete stage. So Siddh Karna of the form of Vaheguru, become one with Vaheguru. The person who has reached Gyan Khand has started to experience that oneness with Vaheguru. Buddha, they gain knowledge of Vaheguru, and Nath, they become one with the Master Lord.
Kete Devi Ves.
Kete Devi. So as well as these demigods, there are Deviyan, and there are numerous these demigoddesses. There are a number of these, because Vaheguru has created numerous amounts of these.
Kete Dev Danav Mun Kete.
Kete, there are a number of Dev, Devi, Devte, the demigods, Danav, the dents, the demons, and Mon, the silent sages, there are a number of these that have been created by Vaheguru.
Kete Ratna Samund.
And there are many oceans, samund, containing ratan, containing these jewels that have been created by Vaheguru. And the Gursikh who reaches this stage of Gyan Khand, they realize all of these. They see all of these. They see that Vaheguru is almighty. They have understood that stage of truth, Satwa Pata. They have understand the truth being Vaheguru, and the creation of the truth.
Ketiya Khani, Ketiya Bani.
So there are many Khanis. Khanis are the four, we describe Char Khanis, the four ways of coming into this world. Andaj, Jeraj, Setaj, Uttabaj. People come into this earth, or creation comes into this world through eggs, through the womb, by growing just like flowers, and through sweat, just like amoebas. But Vaheguru is saying there are many, many other ways that creation comes into this world. There are a number of ways that Vaheguru has created. Ketiya Bani. There are many languages in this world, but not just this world, but in all of creation. That's similar to these Khanis. In this world we have Char Khani, but Vaheguru has a number of ways in which creation has been made. Bani, if we take it spiritually, we say there are Char Banis as well. There are four ways to communicate with Vaheguru. We have a communication through our mouth. We communicate, which they call Bakri Bani. Then we have Madhama Bani, which is in the kant, which is in the throat, where we're not moving our mouth, the lips, or no sounds coming out. We, let's say, just less than whispering. And then we have Pasanti Bani, where we can repeat the name of the Lord through our heart. And then we have what we call Parabani, which through our tunni, our nabbi, where our belly button is, the sound of tunni, the sound current that is Vaheguru, starts from there, and we concentrate on the name of the Lord there. So those who repeat the name of the Lord, they go through those four stages when they're meditating. So they originally start reciting the name of the Lord out loud. Vaheguru, 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 like this. And then it goes into, that's Bakri Bani. Then it goes into their Madham, where they say in their kant, where they, in their thought process, they're repeating the name. And then it goes into their heart, and as their heart beats, the name of Vaheguru is beating, and they can focus on that frequency. And then ultimately they go in what we call Parabani, which is the sound of Vaheguru, sound of Naam from their nabbi, their belly button area, where the tun, that sound of Vaheguru comes and it travels all around the body, and they concentrate on that when they're meditating. And from there they reach different samadhiya. They move through the Dasam Dwar before they become one with Vaheguru. So the Gursikh who's reached Gyan Khand has gone through all those stages and is experiencing that oneness with Vaheguru.
Kete Pat Narendra.
Kete Pat Narendra. Pat Narendra means kings and their dynasties. So Raje and their Rajdhani. So there are a number of kings and the lands that these kings rule over.
Ketiya Surti Sevak Kete.
So Ketiya Surti Sevak Kete. There are many of these Sevaks. Surti is we're going to translate to being knowledge and divine knowledge, knowledge of Vaheguru. There are many of those who have gained that divine knowledge. And the Gursikh who's reached this stage has not only gained that divine knowledge, but they see everybody else, because their eyesight has moved from their physical eyesight to their inner eyesight, where they can experience all of creation.
Nanak Antana Ant.
And then Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is explaining to the Siddhs and explaining to us, there is no end, Antana, there is no end to the description of what a Gursikh who has reached Gyan Khand can see, because they get to see all of creation. There is no end to the description of the qualities of the Gursikh who has reached Gyan Khand. If we continue to try and describe all of creation that the Gursikh at Gyan Khand can see, and if we continue to try and describe the avastha, the spiritual stage of a Gursikh who is at Gyan Khand, then Sri Guru Nanak Dev Sahib Ji is saying that those who try to describe, their end will come, the final ant, but we still won't reach no end, antana, of those descriptions. So we've come to the end of this 35th body And this 35th pauri was of Gyan Khand. The straight Satwapat, as it's known as, understanding the truth, the divine truth, realizing and begin to realize the divine truth and becoming one with the Lord. It's the avastha of a sevak, somebody who's completely given tan, mind, body and wealth. They gain true knowledge of all of creation within themselves because they have developed spiritually, and outside of themselves because they've reached this spiritual stage. Next time we'll hear the pauri of Saramakhand, a sangat as it is called, where the remaining two of our Panchjor begin to decrease and vanish. Moh and Hankar, attachment and ego. That is the 36th pauri of Sri Japji Sahib. We've heard and we've developed through these stages. It is the 5th Bhumika, the 5th phase out of 7 before you reach complete oneness, the state in Sachkhand, the avastha of complete oneness with Vaheguru, where Har Harjan Dui Eka Hai, Bib Bichar Kashana Hai, Jalte Opaj Tarang Jo, Jal Hi Bikhe Samahe. In other words, that stage is where there is no difference between the Lord Vaheguru and the being, the creation of the Lord, because they are one and they are the same. This week, I know I've made mistakes reading a Pankti earlier on. I beg for forgiveness in making that mistake and any other mistake I have made in sharing these teachings with you, the Saad Sangat. You, the Saad Sangat, can bless me with Brahm Gyan, the true knowledge of Vaheguru, so I can continue to learn myself and share the teachings of Sri Japji Sahib with you. I pray to Vaheguru that he blesses all with good Sikhi, so we can all experience that bliss, that oneness while we are living, and we can share in that Anand in the Saad Sangat. Deho Sajjan Sisriya Jo Hova Sahib Syo Mela
Ketiya Khani Ketiya Bani Kete Paat Narind Ketiya Surti Sevak Kete Nanak Antna Ant. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.